Hey guys, welcome back for today's video. I got a couple of polls that have come out after the second round of Democratic debates that I want to summarize and go over, just take a look at where things currently are. And not big changes by any means compared to the numbers that we were seeing before the second round of Democratic debates. Perhaps the biggest difference we are seeing is Kamala Harris taking a step back. But before diving in and talking about these numbers, I just want to quickly summarize what I felt happened during those recent debate nights. So on the first night, we had a fascinating dynamic. I think Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren were the clear-cut winners. You had the two highest polling candidates, most popular candidates, right there at the center of the stage, also the most progressive on the stage, and they were surrounded by a lot of lesser-known or less popular moderates and centrists that are polling more in the 0 to 1 percentage point range. And I don't think necessarily that Sanders and Warren were going to go on the offensive, but they were taking a lot of attacks from the centrists and moderates that were around them, and I thought they did an extremely good job of effectively counterpunching back. Now, one of the best lines of the night, I think, came from Elizabeth Warren, and I'm paraphrasing here, but she said to John Delaney, "I'm not sure why you'd go through the trouble of running for president just to tell us all what we can't do and what we shouldn't be fighting for." And the camera that was on John Delaney kind of looked like a deer caught in headlights, but I thought that was an extremely effective line and basically kind of summarizes the whole night, where you had the two progressive candidates having their big policy ideas and how they're going to go about implementing them, and then a lot of candidates around them throwing cold water on those ideas and telling the voters that they need to eat their vegetables and vote for them. I'm not sure that's going to be a winning strategy for those types of candidates, especially in a Democratic primary, for instance. But then on the second night of debates, also a fascinating scenario. I don't think the second night of debates were quite as interesting as the first night of debates, but the more interesting thing of the second night of debates was there was a lot more conflict, more surface level conflict, or candidates that had prepared attacks on other candidates. Now, if we go back to the first round of debates, Kamala Harris was the strongest performer, and she saw a big boost in her numbers afterwards. But I felt like she was one of the weakest performers here on this second round of debates, and I think as a result, that is why she is seeing her numbers go back down. Now, on the first debate that she was in, nobody attacked her or her record. That was not allowed to happen this time around. The candidates around here had prepared attacks against her record as the Attorney General of California, and I don't think she fended them off very effectively. Instead of responding to the specifics that were brought up against her, she just took more of a generalized approach to saying she was proud of her record without talking about the specifics that were brought up against her. And I think if you want to have success on the debate stage, you have to address the specifics that are brought up against you and explain why the person is wrong to bring up this as an attack on your record, and Harris wasn't able to do that effectively. Now, Joe Biden, I don't think he was necessarily a great performer either, but it wasn't the disaster that we saw from him in the first night or the first round of Democratic debates. He definitely was more prepared and had things to bring to the table to counterattack on these other candidates. Again, I don't think it was an overwhelmingly strong performance, but I think it was good enough for Joe Biden, and he needs to continue to have performances at least to this level going forward if he's going to maintain his front-runner status. I think actually on the second night of debates, I think you can make an argument that Jay Inslee had the best performance. Maybe Cory Booker and, maybe Andrew Yang had some interesting points, but by and large, it was Tulsi, Gabbard, Joe Biden, some of these other candidates going in on Kamala Harris and her having a pretty weak result and seeing her numbers go down. If we take a look here at this morning consult poll, I felt like Jay Inslee had a really strong performance in that second night of the debates. But we take a look here, and he's way down at just 0% support down here towards the bottom of the list. So, he probably isn't even going to be able to get to the the third round of debates. And then outside of that, it was just more a lot of establishment-type politics on the second night of debates, which turned a lot of people off. It is what it is, and we're going to have a different dynamic going forward once we start getting all of the upper-tier candidates on the same debate stage. Looking forward to seeing how that plays out once those debates roll around. So here we have the morning consult. Joe Biden pretty steady there, first place, 33 percentage points. And then the two most progressive candidates, Sanders and Warren, getting a little bit of a boost, perhaps taking away some of that Kamala Harris support after they had very strong performances on the first night. You have Sanders there at 19%, Elizabeth Warren at 15%, and Harris now below double digits at 9 percentage points followed by Mayor Pete Buttigieg at 6%, Cory Booker and Beto O'Rourke each at 3%, Andrew Yang at 2%. And I feel like I call it the Andrew Yang cutoff line, where if you're not able to get above Andrew Yang, you should probably be in a situation where you're dropping out, given the fact that Andrew Yang was a complete unknown coming into this process, and he's been able to effectively utilize at least the internet medium to build a little bit of support and grassroots behind his candidacy. If you're not able to get past somebody who is a complete unknown coming into the process, you're probably not going to be effective in getting enough support to really make a serious run at these upper tier candidates. That's just my 2 cents on it. So going down and taking a look at more of the data, you can see here the week by week differences in the numbers. We see a little bit of a rebound here from Bernie, 1 percentage point up, and then a couple points up for Elizabeth Warren. And then you can see here Kamala Harris, this was that post-debate surge that she got in her numbers. And now after these second debates, down there at 9 percentage points, taking a little bit of a hit there. And then also just taking a look at the favorable, unfavorable numbers, where you continue to have Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden at a similar area here, but a difference that definitely is worth noting, Kamala Harris up there at 22% unfavorable. That is a jump in her unfavorable numbers from where we've seen her in recent weeks, and attributed, again, I feel, to her very weak performance in the second debate that she was in. And also just taking a look at the support of these candidates, who is their second choice. And you want to be the second choice of the upper tier candidates. So that's a positive sign for both Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden, because Bernie Sanders is the second of Biden supporters and Warren supporters. And then it's positive for Joe Biden that he's the second pick of Bernie Sanders supporters, which does surprise me that the second pick of Sanders supporters isn't Elizabeth Warren, because they're more ideologically aligned. But it is what it is. You know, not every person that gets polled is a very high information voter, so they might not even realize that there's a massive difference between somebody like a Sanders and a Biden in relation to the similarities between somebody like a Sanders or Elizabeth Warren, for instance. All right, so that's all of the morning consult numbers I wanted to touch on. Now going over and taking a look at a Rasmussen Harris X poll. And this one, we see Joe Biden, 27% support in first place. In second place, Bernie Sanders at 16%, Elizabeth Warren at 11%. Kamala Harris, again, not a great result for her post-second debate, down there at 7 percentage points. And then we see a dip behind her. And we take a look at the age demographics. Bernie Sanders getting that largest amount of support, 27% from 18 to 34-year-olds, while Biden is cleaning up amongst the older voters, 65 plus, where he's at 41 percentage points. And as the voters get older, they're more likely to support Biden. As they get younger, they're more likely to support Bernie Sanders. And that is what we consistently see in poll after poll and all the data that we have been presented in recent months. All right, guys, so those are the 2 polls that I wanted to touch on here after the second round of debates. Again, just to quickly summarize those 2 debates, I thought Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren did so well on the first night. I thought they were going to get a little bit more of a boost up in their numbers than what we're currently seeing. And then on the second night, I definitely felt like Harris was going to take a step back after those results. I thought actually Tulsi Gabbard might have been able to take a bit of a step forward. Doesn't seem to necessarily be moving the needle all that much with the result that she had there. Also, Jay Inslee, not really seeing much of a boost after what I felt was a pretty strong performance from him. And that kind of just wraps up what I wanted to talk about here about the second round of Democratic debates and what we're currently seeing in the polls. Not all that much of a difference or change. So thanks, guys, for stopping by. Consider subscribing for more of this type of content in the future. And if you're interested in looking at all this data for yourself, I'll have links posted down in the description. So thanks, guys. Hope to see you in the next video. See you then.